Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sovereign Spirits, where we explore methods on how to escape the reincarnation cycle, transcend the white light, and use our intention in a willful and powerful way to manifest an afterlife as sovereign spirits. I am here with co-creator and co-host of the show, Wayne Bush.
Hi, Julie. I'm excited to do another episode, and this one's quite important, I think. Um, in our
Yes.
series, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, no, you're going to mention, we both wanted to mention that we just started doing these episodes, and our first one was 2 parts, and we uncovered some very surprising, lesser known elements of near-death experiences. That was really interesting. So there's 2 episodes. Catch that if you haven't already, whoever's watching. And
Yeah.
we got more today. So what are we going to
Yeah.
do?
Well, in our series of shows, we're going to be diving deeply into experiences and all kinds of experiences, near-death experiences, pre-birth memories, past life regressions, life between life experiences, out-of-body experiences, alien abductions, and so on. So, as you mentioned, our last show was on near-death experiences, and this one will be on pre-birth memories. And some of the books we'll be covering in the next few weeks include Life Before Life by Helen Wambach and Life Between Life by Joel Witten, Conversations with the Spirit Between Death and Life by Dolores Cannon, and Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls by Michael Newton. I do feel they more or less outline the process that happens if one goes to the light, but it seems to me these counselors and guides that we're going to be mentioning are the spirits that may be the ones that still need to learn. It's when we take control of our own sovereignty and stop being led around and giving our power away to these external authorities that I think we can truly advance to the deeper levels. So, as I read these details from these books about the guides and counselors and councils of so-called ascended masters, I'm in no way, shape, or form endorsing that anyone should aspire to do these things or saying that we have to. I'm just warning you of what might occur if you buy into the tactics, and I'm emphasizing the need to avoid putting ourselves in these situations. And I don't know for a fact that, you know, that it's not necessary. I mean, maybe there is some purpose to all that I'm not seeing. So I'm not like trying to say that I know this way is the best or anything. I'm just trying to, look at it from a different perspective than maybe what's normally being looked at out there. So I know, I
Yeah.
think there are,
I was going to say, it's just very curious to me that a lot of these experiences, near death and even out of body experiences, the guides will come along to help. And there is a conversation out there that I see in the groups that I'm in. Some will be saying, no, these are all helpful guides. You can always trust them. And then others are saying, well, not sure if you can always trust these guides. So it's really an interesting conversation and a bit of a debate. So this will be interesting to hear.
yeah, I don't think one should just blindly accept one way or the other. And so I think we do need to try to, I don't know, look at both sides or all our options, right? And try to decide which the path we want to take. So
Huh.
I don't know, man. There's like I think there's better worlds where kindness and cooperation are the way souls live or even evolve. And
Yeah.
maybe you can learn instead through kindness and joy rather than to like torture our avatar or others avatars. And it's like we have all of eternity, so why not enjoy ourselves while we pass this so-called time? The guides will say that earth is the fast track to learning your lessons and growing spiritually, but I don't know that I'd be so quick to listen to them. I mean, there could be this
Yeah.
whole society of like light beings who choose to live the blissfully unaware that there are counselors who are these like salesmen or whatever, and I don't know, they could be like sending these sacrificial souls to Earth in order, maybe they're keeping their standard of living high. It's kind of like here on Earth where, we're killing animals and packaging meat so that we get our source of food. And, with the axiom as above, so below, I mean, who knows? It could be happening at the next level on the astral plane when people die.
Hmm.
So just anyway,
Hmm.
we're going to look at some of the data, some of the evidence, and I'm not sure if this segment's going to take more than one part to do, but later on I will be going over the book Cosmic Cradle, where the recurring theme is spirit guides, angels, divine planners, and our higher being are assisting us in pre-birth planning and planning out our lives with us. And so I think it's a very important segment that people shouldn't miss. So don't, if it goes to two parts, don't, be sure not to miss it. So first, I want to go over a few emails that I receive and from some other online sources, some of which seem to describe either manipulation or forcing us to come to Earth, which of course should be a bit concerning. So I received a couple emails of pre-birth experience memories, and one is from a man named Lars. He's from Germany, and he remembers choosing a role before he came to Earth. And he wrote, "So since I was born, physically prior to that, I can remember the state I was in. I remember a place, people, things, and most importantly, a kind of decision that was requested from everyone who came to this Earth world, and that was to decide the factors by which we start living, like parents, gender, and what I want to be, like a worksman, a leader, a hero, a villain, whatever. Eventually, I said without hesitation, I want to be a hero. And the voice said, fine, you be the hero. Then I was born. I also know that my mission is to tell people the truth, and that I was warned that resistance is big and there will be a lot of it." Another woman wrote me from Seattle, and she remembers being killed in her last life. And she wrote, "I believe I just wanted to share my pre-birth experience, which includes a memory of my most recent past life and my first memory from this one. I was murdered. After I blacked out or died, I remember waking up in a gray metallic looking room with garish hospital-like light coming from everywhere. I was lying on something like a steel slab and was surrounded by stereotypical gray aliens. I was mortified. I had just been murdered, so I went from a nightmare to a hell. I remember putting up a strong fight, kicking, biting, throwing punches at everything, then blacking out again. The next thing I remember is being in a toddler's body and being carried by human-looking entities. They were tall, blonde, and very beautiful. I can only describe them as looking like the drawings people have made of Nordic aliens. When I first saw Game of Thrones, I noticed they resembled the Targaryens. However, I'm not sure if I said that right, but however, I was still afraid and knew intuitively that this was a disguise and these were the same beings. They seemed agitated with me, like I had caused problems, and were very stoic and quiet. I then remember being shown a panoramic view of the Earth, like something you'd see at NASA's website. The very next thing I knew, someone was stuffing me into a frilly little yellow dress and white booties. I know this was a memory from early infancy. I asked my mother how I was dressed when I was brought home from the hospital. She told me I was dressed in a lacy yellow dress and matching yellow and white booties that someone in my father's family had knitted for me before I was born. There was no way I could have known this, as there weren't any photos taken of me that day, or none to my knowledge, and I was never told by anyone what I was wearing." So there's another one. It's like some near the, yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah,
Anything you want me to?
I've heard negative things about the gray, more negative, I think, than positive with the grays. But I've always heard positive things about the Nordics, the blonde, tall, human-looking aliens.
Yeah, the Nordics and Pleiadians to a certain, they have a more of a
Pleiadians.
positive view. And the grays, I know there's different types of grays. There's this shorter gray. I'm no expert on aliens, but I've heard like the smaller grays are more like a biological robot kind of thing, where they're like collecting data. They're just the lab workers kind of thing. But there's like taller grays that are more behind the scenes that work with some other type of aliens. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get more into that in our segment on aliens, I guess.
Yeah, I just want to point out, we're not saying like all ETs are negative, or
Right.
Yeah, just like not all humans are negative.
Exactly.
Just throwing that out there. We're just looking at this evidence that's kind of out of the ordinary, that many have not heard before, probably.
Probably not, but more and more with YouTube and stuff, things are opening up quite a large degree. So another pre-birth memory I received was from Tony. He wrote, "Prior to birth, everything was just a very bright white energy, including me, just flying around, seemingly random, but at the same time, obviously not random. There were no feelings, there were no emotions, there was only an indescribable contentment, so much so that any emotion would very likely be unwelcome. I just was. I was completely content, flying around wherever I wanted. I could go anywhere I wanted, seemingly almost instantly, as if there were very little travel time involved. I have clips of memories going to various places. Then suddenly I was drawn to a much stronger conscious energy than I was. I had not decided that I wanted to go to her. I didn't even know of her existence up to that point. I had no desire whatsoever to meet the white lady, and I certainly did not want to go anywhere else other than right where I was and control my own actions and desires. I call her the white lady because she was the most peaceful, inviting energy I'd ever encountered, to my knowledge. And she just seemed feminine. Communication was never done verbally. I wouldn't even call it telepathy. We just knew what each other was saying. Best I can describe it. She told me I was about to come here. I was perfectly content where I was, and I did not want to come here, nor anywhere else for that matter. I protested, but I couldn't move. Her energy then touched mine, and I perceived her hushing me. Then I started falling, almost like being pushed off a cliff. The indescribably beautiful place started fading further and faster away from me. Then I was in what seemed to be a field of shooting stars, passing by me extremely fast. It was a long and frightening fall. Then I was in the delivery room, human, in pain and livid for having been forced to be here against my will. I remember the doctor holding me up high by my legs and slapping my behind. That only made me angrier. My mother told me that I was a breech baby and I came to this world feet first. I tell people I didn't want to come here and they just give me a funny look. I know that everything is interconnected at a quark level, at least. Living and inanimate, non-living things, everything affects everything else. But anyway, he talks about how he remembers he was there. And more, I think this was maybe somebody else. He said, I didn't go in. Okay, no, this is still him. He says, I didn't go into the light per se, because we had, email conversations back and forth. I didn't go into the light per se. I was drawn to it against my will. And once I was where she wanted me to be, I was immobilized. She definitely had a feminine energy. Her energy, if it could be light, but I've always called it energy, was mostly all I could see because we were so close. Up until that point, I had no conception that I was powerful or anything like that. Her ability to do what she had just done to me instantly gave me the concept of power differences. I could not move any longer under my free will. I didn't feel any malevolence from her, only pure love. There was no life review or any questions about how much I'd learned or about anything. She just said, you're going there, meaning Earth. And he said, I was just simply out there doing what we do, being perfectly content. And then I was drawn against my will to the white lady. When I say against my will, I mean that I did not decide that I wanted to go to her. And once the process was started to go to her, I could not stop it. That sort of thing had never happened to me before then. Once I was with her, we started communication, mostly one-sided, with her telling me where I was going here. I clearly remember telling her that I definitely did not want to come here. I don't remember why I felt that way. Maybe I already knew I was going to be here. Maybe I'd already been here before then. All I know is I didn't want to come here. Then the fall, I was completely out of control until I was born in the delivery room. So, there's one person that feels at least that they were just out there as a spirit, just floating around, having fun, doing whatever they wanted to do. And all of a sudden they were basically forced to come here.
So he was drawn somehow to this white lady.
Have to look about have to look back at exactly what he said, but I think that often is the case, is that sometimes they'll see the white light or they'll see a being and they are drawn, they're attracted to them, and we'll see that certainly in the one part that I was going to get to at the very end, where this person just keeps going on and on about how attractive the light is.
Okay.
Yeah, and this one's not exactly a pre-birth memory, but it's an early life memory I received. And he says, I have one early memory. I remember rather a full consciousness viewing my surroundings from a baby's body. It felt as though I was inside a China doll looking outward. The big memory feeling, though, was one of complete despair. I'm 60 years old now and still recall the feeling of defeat, trickery, and disillusionment at once again being here. I felt as though I had been tricked into being here. I felt this as I watched a scene, which turned out to be exactly where I was as a baby, my crib at a window, of a woman pulling water out of a well. I felt such despair at being here. I then felt as though a shade was drawn upon me, and I do not recall much more from my early childhood. I have, however, thanks to be in omnipotence, always remembered this event. So I have nothing to ask of you and nothing more to share except the story. So another one. Did you want to say something about that one? Or?
No, it's these are kind of heavy. It's kind of heavy stuff right now.
Yeah, some of the other ones will get a little more lighter, But it's a challenging subject, and maybe since I had the website Tricked by the Light, I get a heavier dose of people that are going to email me that have been feel like they've been tricked. Maybe I won't get people emailing me that had wonderful pre-memory experiences, pre-birth memory experiences. So we have to factor that in too. But there's another one that's not really technically a pre-birth memory, but Patrick emailed and said, I actually exited this whole thing one night and found myself in a flat room with the whole universe contained within a white orbish thing sitting on a pedestal and a window that reached out into hyperspace. And he says, regarding the exit, I was doing some meditations and realized the chakra system that the New Age tells you to tune into is used by the higher self, which is in fact the archon / demiurge, to feed off us, the personal anchoring system to be here and come back. I started to pulse the energy outwards one by one, and then when all 7 of them were pulsing out, it spontaneously happened. So part of the challenge here is to go into the demiurge higher self personal rep and merge with it, love it and grow through / out of it and enclose it within your being. I accomplished this that night and popped out in that room. I busted out a giant Buddha laugh. I came to see that the ultimate graduation test is growing more powerful than that aspect of ourselves, which is unconscious and out of touch with the whole. I've also been inside the control room, if you will, of the higher self archon control system. It's like the architect scene with Neo in the Matrix with all the incarnations on the screens. I traveled through the silver cord to get there. From there is how I popped out into that room I mentioned earlier. It ties into the end of the 2001 Space Odyssey scene in the White Room. It was quite unique, though, because the room was two-dimensional, but it was expressed hyperdimensionally is the best way to explain it. I started out a love and lighter when I got into the channeled material, then realized they're actually the dark dudes masquerading, and found out there really isn't a love of light option because love and light are two sides of the same problem, namely external authority, identifying with anything outside of oneself. So I don't know, you get all kinds of different perspectives from different people that have different experiences and have their own.
So it sounds like he's saying the higher self are the archons that we
Yeah,
don't
it sounds like he feels
have.
that they're part of the same system and that the love and light are part of the problem because they're maybe still duality or something. I don't know. I just I don't want to like not read somebody's experience just because it doesn't conform to what people have been hearing. It's just something to
I
contemplate, I
don't know
guess.
that I've heard that thought
Right.
before. The higher self are, the archons that we have to merge
Yeah.
back with.
Well,
So it can.
I've contemplated the idea that the angels and archangels and the guides and counselors, like they could be part of a quote unquote system that isn't to our best. Maybe like on Earth, there's farmers, that take care of animals. Almost, they do take care of them. They will heal them and keep them healthy but it's for like an ulterior motive or purpose, or like even you have pet owners here on Earth where they treat their pets magnificently, and then other pet owners that just, well, shoot, I don't know, I don't want to get too specific, but sometimes they use animals for gaming and all kinds of stuff, whether it's horse
Right.
races, and not all animals are treated the same way, and so maybe we're even considered pets to them, or I don't know.
And his experience also there's a lot of technology. It's
Mhm.
like that doesn't sound very spiritual, I guess.
Right.
So,
Well, when we get into Dolores Cannon material, it's the In Between Lives. She says there's a big supercomputer over there on the other side that's doing all these calculations of our lives and things like that. And you do run into, I mean, some technology, some crystal technology with television screens and stuff like that, and near-death experiences too. So
uh,
I don't know what to make of it, but yeah, why do these advanced spiritual beings need technology?
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's a good point. So most of these that I'm about to read are taken from prebirthmemories.com. The first one says, at the end of all this, I begged the powers to let me stay in the heavenly land. I told them I had been well behaved all those years and hadn't done anything wrong. They acknowledged this, but stated that the people who stayed there permanently had had exemplary lives for their previous life, but that I hadn't really. I knew then that they wanted me to have another life on Earth. At this point, I remembered that I had had many previous lives and felt dismayed I would have to have another one and be separated from my heavenly friends. Again, I begged them, and the voice asked whether or not I too wanted to have an exemplary last life. At this point, I replied that I didn't particularly. There was a moment of silence where I reflected a little and saw that another life was the most noble choice, and that really there wasn't much choice anyway. My next realization, however, was that I would lose my memory. I clearly remember saying out loud, "You're going to wipe my memory, aren't you?" At this point, there was a moment of silence, which I took as a yes, before I remember my memory slipping away as a dream memory does upon waking.
Wow.
Yeah.
That memory wipe stuff just really is not, I don't get it. It sounds terrible. And I don't know why
Yeah, and in our near-death one, we read quite a few that sounded very similar to that, where they're protesting and, "Oh no, you're going to wipe my memory," and Yeah, so the second one, Arjan recalls there is a script for our earthly lives, which leaves a lot of room for individual freedom, but fixes certain events that simply need to happen. He remembers that a spiritual being wrote specific things down for him. The third one says, the gatekeeper said, there is a life available that you would be acceptable or suited for. It will be very difficult and there will be much hardship. You do not have to accept it. It sounded to me like I was being offered a part in a play. Overjoyed and enthusiastic beyond words, I snapped at it. Yes, I'll take it. I'll go. You do not understand, the gatekeeper said. This life will be so difficult that if you take it, you may not be able to return here. At this point, I told him I still wanted to accept the life he had described. I don't know why. I don't think I would have been jumping at the bit to take that role.
Yeah,
Some
I'm just
people
so,
like adventure and challenges, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. I wish we had more information. Like, was he given other options? Did he have memory of all these other planets and that he could incarnate on?
Maybe they just talked to him in a really cool voice. Remember that one from the near-death experience one?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, I wish we knew the full story, the entire context of the situation. That's what's difficult with all these. And we don't hear from the ones who don't come here. So we don't know how much of a minority these are, or if it's a majority. These could be just the outliers of just the people who are super adventurous or super naive, or who knows what the scenario really is. And the last one from that website says, despite my begrudging sense of duty and my knowledge that my time of rest was up, I defied these two beings and told them to stuff it and that I was going back to sleep. They became slightly agitated and told me that they knew. I knew that I had to comply. However, I still was hesitant, remembering past lives spent on Earth, anguishing, painful lives that I was still recovering from. They mentioned some kind of promise that I had made and that it was no use trying to back out now. I was still not convinced that I was needed as badly as they said I was and began drifting back to sleep, half hoping that these beings would leave me be. What happened instead was the cosmic equivalent of a scuffle, as I felt my essence seized by these beings and heaved into a gently rotating blue portal that had opened up near us. I'd never been as offended as I was when this happened. I sensed that the two blue beings were my old friends and that we had shared many adventures, but this awakening of my spirit felt like betrayal, like I had finally gotten out of the cage only to be forced back in. That the dream of me being forced to come back to Earth in this time of great strife was real, and that I'd already had a body and would have to live through another physical life. Another wave of resentment came over me as a blast of unimaginable cold and harsh artificial light hit my face. At this point, the shock basically cut all thought, and I became, for all intents and purposes, a human baby, complete with memory wipe and material needs. There's
Oof,
another
wow.
one. Yeah, that's what I don't like, is the against your will kind of thing. Like, they don't want to go, but they're either kind of persuaded into it.
Yeah, because there supposedly are plenty lined up that want to come here. I
Right.
mean, I know people who are living, they're challenging. They've had challenges, but they want to come back. So if they have plenty of people to come back here, whoever they are,
Right.
why are these people being forced? I'm against their will.
Right. Well, I mean, they try to convince you that you really need to grow and evolve. It's kind of like, your parents saying, really, you really got to go out there and get a job. You're 49 years old now. You probably ought to get out on your own and get a job. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's like they're really.
There are other planets that we can go to and learn and grow and evolve. Why are we being forced to come to this?
And they sometimes say that you don't have to ever come back. Like you don't have to quote unquote evolve. Like you can just stay where you are. But it's like really, there's a heavy pressure to do so. And I guess if you look around and everybody's brighter than you are, you might you might feel a little inferior. I don't really know. Or maybe you just feel like you're stagnant, like you're just sitting around doing nothing. And maybe at some point in time you do want to challenge, or you do want an adventure. Maybe there is some kind of growth that can happen
Now,
somehow.
I want to after I exit. I mean, I might want to still have some adventures, but not here. And if I'm forced back here against my will, that's like sounds like a cosmic crime.
Crime, exactly. I agree. This next one, I think it's called Before Day One. It's Rick's pre-birth memory account. He said, I found myself in a place with what I call guides, and these guides were directing me kind of to Earth, and it seemed like it was a mission of some kind. And these beings, one can interpret them as angels, and this is pretty much what I used to believe in to some degree. I still might believe that it seemed like they were doing the work of some type of higher power. Certainly, they were kind of just following orders, like it seemed they had a limited amount that they could do. Maybe to make me more comfortable or to affect my life, like maybe I had a certain amount of choices that were in their control to accept or deny, something like that. But it felt like there was a higher power somewhere. And the very first part of this memory involves me being in a much larger space, like a palace or something like that. I had that kind of vibe. It was like a very regal, almost sort of energy to it. And there were in my memory, I mean, I don't know if this was 100% accurate, but I believe that it was like a palace with pillars and all kinds of fancy decoration there and everything. But it was inhabited by like more energy beings, and I was one of these energy beings. And in this particular place, we had no specific form. Like we were more like balls of energy, and we were waiting in this huge queue. Like, in a bank or in an airport or something when you're waiting to see the clerk, and it's the busiest hour of the day. Think of that, but times like 100 or 1,000 or something. Like it was just a huge, huge queue. Like, how it goes with these roped off areas, and you have to go back and forth, and eventually your turn comes. So my turn neared, I felt a greater and greater sense of anxiety and anticipation about where I was going to go. I kind of knew what was coming, and there was like a doorway that I had to step through. And I don't remember exactly what this doorway looked like, but I've recreated all this actually in animation. I've given it like my best shot. And then he says, I recall the feeling of being in this line, and then I recalled being in the other space looking at the earth. Or I wasn't looking at the earth right away, but it happened pretty soon. Like these beings came into the room with me, and what I would call the guides. They were larger than I was. They looked like they were made out of pure energy or something. There's another thing I'll get into in a moment, but it was like they directed the view screen, or they configured it somehow so that the earth came into view. And when I saw the earth, I was incredibly anxious, even more so than I had been when I was waiting in line. I knew at that moment I didn't want to go. I was absolutely adamant that I would not go, and I was panicking. I was losing it. And so these guide beings, they started wondering what's wrong with this kid or something. I don't know if they were taking pity or what, but they became very kind of disconcerted by my reaction. So they went and talked amongst themselves in the corner or off somewhere a little bit out of my earshot, maybe, if you could call it that, because yeah, it was different, and I don't know how much I remember about it being like psychic, telepathic communication, but it felt like they were kind of talking amongst themselves, and I wasn't really privy to everything they were saying. It was like they had to talk for a little while, and I got the sense that they were like, what are we going to do here? He doesn't want to go. Is there something that we could do to make him feel better or convince him to go, or blah, blah, blah? It was that type of vibe to it. I knew that they were doing that. And so the main guide, which he was more like blue energy, or he had a blue aura to him, he came back and gave me the news or the verdict or whatever the conclusion that they had come to. So before I get to the conclusion, I'll talk a little about what I'm saying, what they look like. It could be very little bit, and I thought why this is true of the earth too. When you looked at anything in this place, it was like it had material form, yet at the same time, they had this energy aspect to it. It felt like it was much more energetic than a regular matter. Or what I've come to think is that when we have human eyes, we are seeing a very limited portion of the light spectrum, which is to say the electromagnetic spectrum we see is a very limited frequency range with our eyes. When it comes to the guides, and when I dream about the guides, they take on many different appearances, but there were two specific ways that I perceived these guides in my memory. And that was number one, they seemed like they were either completely light colored, light sparkling of varying colors, or they seemed more solid and humanoid. Either way, they were humanoid. But they could also appear as something more akin to like aliens. And so that had me perplexed for a while, but I've really been thinking about that over time. And I think it's more of a case where beings can take on different appearances. I've tried looking for pictures of Earth to depict what I saw via Google through NASA. And he says sometimes they have all the colors of the Earth and they kind of overlay the grid of the cities that can look a little more like the kind of energy that I perceived. He said the closest thing you could conceptualize would be like a hologram or something. I was seeing the full spectrum of the energy of the life that existed on Earth, all the beauty, and I guess you could say the beauty and the terror and everything. All the different energies were there, and maybe that was why I was so scared. I could see the full spectrum and only visually, but I could perceive all its emotional energy as well. I had a lot of fear associated with mine. I was very afraid of coming to Earth. I seemed to know what was going to happen when I went to Earth. At any rate, I knew that it was a place that many bad things happen. There's a lot of loneliness, and we're disconnected from, once again, the family and this feeling of being a large, loving family. And sometimes I've said over the years that I didn't feel that much love there, and I didn't feel that much love from these guides, not all the time anyway. And maybe that was because I was just so overwhelmed by anxiety, but I knew that there was a reason why I didn't want to go to Earth, and that was because I was much preferred being where I was. So I didn't want to go, and they did their little huddle in the corner, their little powwow, and they came to this conclusion. And I think it was that they offered me some kind of compromise, something to make me feel more comfortable. And maybe that was that they were going to send me to a specific family, because I don't remember having a choice of which family, which parents I would be born to. It seemed like that was chosen for me for some reason. And maybe it was some kind of karmic thing, I don't know. But something was compromised there, and I think this is something that people often say. And he says it's a big thing if they let you remember. That's going to affect a whole lot in your life, and it could very well change the course of your life. I'm sure it's not something that they would take lightly in that case. So I think they allowed me that, and I agreed to it, apparently. I was like, okay, it's not like I've had much of a choice, seemed to me, because what we often hear is that we're told we don't have to go if we don't want to. But to me, it felt like I had no choice, really, and maybe that was the case for me. Maybe I did have no choice because of something I'd done in my past life, like I needed to kind of correct it, or I needed to grow and learn to some degree. So now, from that point, I was just sent on my way, and I don't remember what that was. He says, as far as the life planning goes, I didn't get a whole lot of that. I remember things were told to me like there was a part of my memory. When I first recalled it, the guides told me many things that were going to happen. I think they gave me some encouragement, and maybe they inserted somewhere into my subconsciousness things that I would need to prepare for just have that knowledge that certain things, a certain chain of events might unfold, and then it was taken away again, like on a conscious level. He said, there's only a couple more paragraphs. He said, and then they also did something just before they sent me on my way. I felt like they were blessing me or something. Like, you know, when you're in church and you have a whole bunch of people praying over you, that is kind of what it felt like. But at the same time, I don't know if it was a prayer exactly, or if they were doing some kind of ritual or something to help me remember. I don't remember seeing my whole life or anything, but once again, that was taken away. And other people, some people claim that they remember everything that they were told about what would happen in their life work. Sometimes they say that they were able to choose their life and choose their parents and stuff. So there are variations on this theme, but it's all basically the same narrative, which is that we meet guides and we are told by these guides that we have to go to Earth. Some people feel very anxious about it, and others feel very excited, like they're gung-ho for this mission. Like maybe some of them have even failed at it before, and they're excited for the chance to try it out again. So like you said, like you mentioned, Jolie, is, you know, people who are excited about coming back for another life or do life, you know, multiple lives, right? Some people are like that. This guy didn't want to come back. And what I found interesting was the quote unquote prayer or ritual that they seemingly did on him before he came down. Is that like part of the memory wipe? Is that part of some kind of hypnotic thing you're doing, your spell? You just don't know.
You know, as you were sharing his experience, I was thinking, well, it's at least it's good that we you know, good sign that we do have our own feelings, and he did have his own will. He sensed his own ability, like his own choices, even though they were taken away from him. But you know, so it's not, well, I'm just thinking, well, at least we're not hypnotized from the get-go right after we exit. and we have some control over
Well,
our
it may
thoughts.
depend on how strong your resolution is to remain a sovereign spirit.
Some of
Like
these sounded like they were pretty
he was pretty determined
much.
not to go. Huh? Yeah, I don't know. It just I don't want to like not include these kind of our name of our channel is Sovereign Spirits, and I do feel like we are sovereign spirits, and we do have free will, and we do have willpower, and but there is does seem to be a lot of attempts to take some of that away or to get us to do what they want us to do, even though it's not what we want to do. And it's
Well,
hard. That's something
hopefully
we're gonna have to figure out.
hopefully sharing, these experiences that like these, maybe it will help the next time around somebody
Hmm.
exits if they know, look, I can be, I know this can happen. This is a possibility. So to be more prepared,
Right.
hopefully.
Yeah, if you set your intention, you maybe set up that shield of protection around you so that other beings that don't have your best interest aren't able to interact with you. Maybe those beings wouldn't have been allowed to have access with them, and we just don't know.
That's true. That's true. It seems that most, especially in religious, have religious backgrounds and beliefs, they exit and they're ready to rock and roll with whatever guide or angel comes up. Like, okay, I'll go with you. They don't put up protection at all, from my understanding.
Right, right. I mean, that's a good point. So the next one, it's pre-birth memories. It's a PBE of Deus Vault channel on YouTube, and it says Earth was a black mass of pure evil or something like that. So he says, I decided to make this video finally about the pre-birth experience, and I'm doing it because I'm sitting in traffic and I'm bored, so I don't even know where to start, honestly, but watching these other videos on the pre-birth experience is one of the main reasons why I'm making this video. I just feel like the story does need to get out. I feel like the whole reason why I've had this experience is to tell people about it, so that's why I'm doing it. It's insane to hear other people talk about it because all our experiences are pretty much exactly the same. Well, this is how it started for me. Basically, I started off and I was like, I'd want to say like a ball of energy, and I was floating around and I was experiencing pure bliss. It's the best feeling you can ever imagine. You can describe it in 2 words. I was basically receiving knowledge constantly about everything. I understood everything. I was so smart yet so curious at the same time. One thing I did not hear people mention is that I had a body, and then I didn't at the same time. I was like a baby, a teenager, and an elderly person all at the same time. I was again a young baby, I was a teenager, and an elderly person, but I didn't see my hands or anything like that. I felt like I was all those ages at one time. I know that's very weird, but that's what I felt. I was just kind of floating around, just flying around, just feeling so good. And then I felt something like calling me over. Behind me, like, turn around, fly over here. I was being beckoned. Somebody was talking to me telepathically. I turned around and I saw 3 beings, 3 of them. I saw was a womanly figure and 2 males standing next to her side by side. I couldn't really see their faces, but they were just wearing, I would want to say, white robes, and I couldn't see her face. It was just light, but I could see her hair. She was a brunette, and they were telling me to come down, and instantly I knew what was happening. I knew that they were going to send me here, and I did not want to come at all. I did not want to be here. I was like, nope. I remember fighting it really bad, like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I was flying around a little more, just like, when you're trying to tell your kid to go clean their room and they're just like they're trying to have fun before they go. That's what I was doing. I was like, no, 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 I do not want to go to this place. And I was doing that. I was kind of looking over to where I was going to go, Earth. And man, that was the first moment of fear that came over me. I was scared because I knew this place was going to be bad. I didn't want to come here for sure. Compared to that, I didn't want to be here. And I was fighting it, and I got to the point where I was going to go. I had no choice, and they were letting me know that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Just come on down. And before I went down again, I turned around, I saw them, and had looked, and it was a pool of water, and covering it was like a big awning, like old. I want to say they were like columns, white columns, like old Greek columns. They were real defined, and they were just beautiful. It was just covering this pool, and they were standing by the water, and I did not want to go into that water. Knew what that meant, so they beckoned me over, and at this point I was fighting it. I had no choice. I was being pulled in the water, and I got to the water and I was petrified. I knew what was going to happen. They were going to send me down. I didn't want to go, and I kept asking them, please, if I'm going to go, can you please let me remember this place? I want to remember. I want to remember. And they kept reassuring me, and they allowed me to remember. They allowed me to remember this place. And as I got that confirmation that they were to allow me to remember, I was okay with going. And I was in that water. I know for a fact they gave me a choice as to what life I want to live. I could have been rich, famous, and had it really easy, but my memory of heaven would have been gone basically. I had to live a more difficult life here. To remember that place, that was the deal. And I wanted that deal because I wanted to remember. It was that important to me. The short amount of time that I'd be here, it was totally worth it to remember a place like this because I have this understanding now. And it's priceless because I know for a fact that when we pass on, there's an afterlife and there's a heaven because I've been there. I remember without a doubt in my mind, without a doubt. And man, those people that were standing by the water, the woman and the two beings that were speaking to me, the love that you feel for these people is again something that you cannot put into words. You think you love your parents, you think you love your children if you have them, and it's nothing compared to the love that you feel when you're up there at all. You cannot compare it to the point where I actually miss them. I miss them very, very much. I think about them all the time. I think about the situation all the time. It's something that never leaves me, and I cannot wait to go back. I don't know what my purpose here is on planet Earth, but like I just can't wait to go back. That's the only thing I could say about that. So again, I got in the pool. I was scared. I was terrified because I remember looking at the place that I was going to go to Earth, and it's ugly. I just remember looking like a black bubbling mass of just pure evil, and I was petrified. I just knew this was going to be tough. I knew this place was going to be dark. I knew this place needed work. I just knew I didn't want to go. Yeah, here I am, but I got in the water. I chose my life. I chose my mom. I do know that. I chose the family I wanted. I chose the body. I chose how I wanted to look. I chose a lot of things. There's a lot of things that you get to choose before you come here. I don't know if we all chose these things. I really don't, but I remember choosing them myself. I got in the water. I remember being sucked down. At this point, I was gone. I remember being sucked down in this like tube, and the fear came over me right then and there. When I started getting sucked down this tube, as the farther I went down, the memories started to fade away of that place of heaven. Started to go away slowly, and I remember just like being really tired. I could hardly keep my eyes open now, just like a roller coaster, just being sucked down really, really fast. And one of the last things I remember from this whole entire memory is the best way to describe. I remember a vision, when you close your eyes and you look at a light or maybe even the sun and you can see the flesh color. I remember seeing that, and I'll say now I know I was inside the womb, and I felt claustrophobic. I felt that I was inside of a body now, and it was extremely uncomfortable. Felt like I was suffocating. I had to get out. I was like, remember, just like I'm just pushing against the wall, whatever, the womb, I was pushing and pushing. That's the last thing I remember. So there's another one that just seemingly was pushed back against their will. It is concerning, but he did get to choose a lot of things in his life, at least.
But he couldn't be rich and comfortable. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given him some of those memories. Apparently,
Right. That's what he said.
Like no, you got to suffer a little bit more. Then we'll give you.
Well, I've heard when you're on the other side that kind of stuff doesn't really mean anything to you. Like you don't care if you're rich, if you're good looking, if I don't know. A lot of people said that from that perspective, you more cared about the development of your spirit or growth or something like
Well,
that.
some of these guys, they sound like, oh, it's going to be hard. I don't want to suffer. Maybe sounds like.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
yeah. Well, and
Suffer.
plus they're in this really beautiful, blissful place. Why would you want to leave a place where you're just super comfortable and it's super comfy?
I always wonder if any of these people think to ask these guides, well, have you ever been to the planet Earth? And so how did
Right,
you get so advanced? Why do I
right.
have to go to planet Earth to get advanced?
That would be a great question to ask. Let's see all your lives, and yeah,
Yeah, let me take a little peek at some of your past lives on planet Earth.
I'll put that on the list. So, well, the first book I want to talk about is Helen Wambach's Life Before Life, and it was in 1979. Um, and so she wrote, these are different examples of people that were like, I don't know, I think she was a hypnotherapist, so these were probably regressions. And so the person said, the next report also was of someone who resisted the process of living another lifetime. I didn't choose to be born, and I thought when you asked that question, oh no, not again. I'm so comfortable here, wherever here might be. I did have help in choosing. 2 counselors showed me how my mother would want me. My mother-to-be wanted me so much. She would guard and love me so it would all be okay. I felt they were reassuring me. My feeling about the prospect of being born was I felt I had served well in my last life and wanted a rest, and felt it was too soon to return because it would be rather traumatic.
Mhm.
The next account said, I felt that my soul retained the knowledge that I had attained throughout previous lives after birth. So there's one that's saying they feel like they did retain the knowledge, and that maybe there isn't a complete and total mind wipe of everything
Mhm.
that ever happens. But the next one says, I think I was reluctantly talked into being born. A wise man whom I respected, obeyed, and loved helped convince me it would be good for me to be born now. Next one says, yes, I did choose to be born, but I was in a hurry and I wasn't sure of my choice. When you asked me if anyone helped me choose, I became aware that someone, I'm not sure who, gave me a warning, but I felt that I had to get something done and solve something. Next one says, yes, I did choose myself to be born. When you asked if someone helped me choose, I became aware that someone was trying to keep me from getting born. They were warning me. My feelings about the prospect of a coming lifetime were that I had an urgent desire to get down there to play. But after I was born, I felt that it was so rough. The atmosphere was rude down here on Earth. Next one says, yes, I chose to be born, but it was in panic. It was not a decision made at leisure. When you asked if anyone helped me choose, I was aware of guides that seemed to be large light beings guiding me not to be born now, but I was determined. My feelings about the prospects of living the coming lifetime were that I wanted it, and I knew my mother wasn't ready, and this family wasn't right, but I had things to do and 3 karmic trips to complete. It's interesting. They actually knew how many karmic tricks they're going to have to do to complete their unless they accrue more karma on the way, right?
Not sure how you can't
Right.
on a planet like this.
Oh yeah, if you live 80 years, it's kind of hard not
Have
to.
some kind of karma.
Yeah, especially if you're being pushed and prodded in different directions by so many people. The next one said, yes, I chose to be born, and there seemed to be a board or committee, a group of authorities to help me choose. And one said, yes, it was a difficult decision. There was a group helping me choose. They listened to what I had planned and made some suggestions. My feeling about living the coming lifetime was that I was not happy, but I knew what I was going to do was important enough to push aside my feelings of not wanting to be confined to a physical world. And there's 3 more. When you asked if I chose to be born, I didn't want to, but was convinced by a counselor that I needed help with enlightenment. The next one says, I don't really know if I chose to be born. I was aware that there were shadowy figures around me helping, but it was all very unclear. And then the last one says, my birth canal experience started with a strong feeling that somehow they tricked me. They induced the labor and I wasn't ready yet. My feelings after birth were, oh, well, here I am. I'll give it another go. It wasn't a very pleasant introduction to the world. So, yeah, so even back in 1979, there was a lot of this evidence. I mean, how many years ago was that? That's almost 50 years ago. And
Yeah, that's interesting. Who was that again?
Helen Wambach. She wrote Life Before Life in 1979. Um, and so here's the book, Cosmic Cradle, Spiritual
Okay.
Dimensions of Life Before Birth by Elizabeth M. Carmen, Neil J. Carmen, and Bernie S. Siegel. And so they write about these different types of pre-birth experiences. They say the ultimate inspiration came from the adults and children who shared 2 types of pre-birth experiences. Pre-birth memory. And how are we doing on time? Are we fine? Should we go to a different?
Hour. Do we want
Yeah.
to save this for another
That's
episode?
what I'm trying to figure out. Like, how much time are we in?
We're 50 minutes in.
50 minutes. Maybe we should do a separate.
Sure.
Unless you want to. I don't know. It would probably be another 50 minutes, I would imagine. I don't know. Maybe not
For
quite
this
that
one.
long. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
let's go. Please break it up. Let's break it up a little bit for the
Okay,
listeners.
sure.
Something to look forward to after this one. If this piqued your interest, then just wait until you hear the next
Yeah, there's
one.
some really good ones. I mean, a few of the things they talk about is that our life plan is designed prior to birth, and some of the common elements are telepathy. They report telepathy and instantly manifesting whatever they think of or travel via mere intention. And another one is spirit guides, angels, divine planners, great being, creator. Higher being tells them they are going on a journey and will return home one day, and guides assist in pre birth planning and escort them to their mother's room. Another section, they talk about a commonality is preview and life plan, where their upcoming life appears like a Hollywood movie or images on a computer screen, and they are giving options for parents and lessons to learn. And then this pre-birth amnesia, they may feel parts of their pre-birth memory being erased as they descend on the way to Earth. And some are also aware of amnesia gradually taking place in childhood. So these are just something to whet the appetite. It's pretty interesting stuff, so don't miss the second part.
As I was listening to some of these, I was thinking maybe, I mean, I don't have pre-birth memories. I would love some. I would love my first memory from very first incarnation here. I would love to get that one back. But I remember as a child, I remember thinking, there's been a mistake. You got to take me back. Why am I here? This is not what I wanted. Like I must have, maybe I did have some memories back then and they faded or something over time.
Well, I think if you set very strong intentions, I was just reading someone where they said they went off on a 6-month meditation retreat and they were able to retrieve all them. I think they said all the memories of all their past lives. And
Wow.
I think it just takes a long time and a lot of focus and intention. So it's maybe possible to get it back if you live like a monk for the next 6 months. I don't know.
Not everybody has the luxury to do that,
No.
of course, but all right. So shall we close down?
Sure. Sounds like a good
Okay.
plan.
Well, thank you to everyone for watching. This has been Julie McVeigh and
Wayne Bush. And
with Sovereign Spirits.
Into Sovereign Spirits. Yeah.
If you enjoyed this discussion, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like this type of content, please subscribe and click on the bell icon so you are alerted to future videos. And in this way, you partner with us because that will get it up in the algorithm, YouTube algorithm, and more people will see it. And we want this information out there, and we're guessing you do too if you are a fan of the show. And yeah, anything else that you want to say?
No, I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Me too, very much so. And we hope you're all having a great day or evening, wherever you are on the planet. See you next time.
See you next time.